Hello and welcome to World News on the Hour here on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. At least 2 Ukrainian drones hit a facility comprising an electronic plant and an oil refinery in Chuvashia, some 1,300 kilometers inside Russian territory. The attack is one of Ukraine's deepest strikes into Russia since the start of the war. Chuvashia Governor Oleg Nikolaev has reported that no one was harmed in the attack. However, work was halted at the facility out of caution. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, 2 Ukrainian drones were shot down in the Chuvashia region. The Ukrainian military says the attack sparked a large-scale fire at the plant. The facility specializes in manufacturing navigation equipment used in guided aerial bombs, high-precision weapons, and Shahed drones. Lithuania needs to invest at least 120 million euros to ramp up security along its border with Russia, says the country's Interior Minister Vladislav Kondratovič. Lithuania's border with Kaliningrad stretches 275 kilometers, but only parts of existing infrastructure are fortified. The minister said the funding would primarily go towards building a physical barrier, upgrading surveillance systems, and purchasing a counter-drone system. The funding is yet to be discussed, but Kondratovič revealed that Lithuania hopes some of the security investments will be covered by EU funding. A new quay at the port of Klaipėda was listed as one of the investments that could potentially be subsidized by EU funds. The ministry is also looking to buy additional patrol boats to monitor rivers and the Ukrainian lagoon and to help protect critical infrastructure. Efforts to bring Russia to the negotiating table have taken a new turn as a bold sanctions bill advances in the US Senate, led by Senators Blumenthal and Graham. President Donald Trump is signaling opposition to key elements of the proposal. In a surprising development, the Senate hawks have gained support from an unexpected ally, Finland. The country plans to increase defense spending to 5% of GDP and has openly criticized the Trump administration's approach to Russia.
Happy to see you. My pleasure.
A step in the wrong direction. That's how the Finnish Prime Minister described the United States President Donald Trump's attempts to weaken the sanctions bill against Russia.
We need to force the Russian President Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table.
The development follows the U.S. Secretary of State's assertion that sanctions might have a counter effect on Russia.
Our belief, the president's belief, is he believes that right now if you start threatening sanctions, the Russians will stop talking.
The bill in question, supported by a number of U.S. senators, proposes imposing 500% tariffs on countries that keep buying Russian oil and raw materials. Petteri Orpo added that he hopes that the U.S. passes it as quickly as possible.
Finland's importance, geopolitical importance, is quite significant now. And the fact that Finnish President Alexander Stubb established quite close relations with President Trump is one of his most devoted European allies. And actually, Trump listens to a Finnish leader.
Having joined NATO in 2023 following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Finland's 1,300-kilometer-long border with Russia became the alliance's border with the Kremlin.
And Finland noticed that Russia has been building up 4 military bases, increasing military presence along the border with Finland, and it sends alarm bells in Finnish political circles.
In response, 2 bases for a new NATO formation, forward land forces, are being established in Finland. They're intended to be used for both conducting regular exercises, but also to provide deterrence. Against this backdrop, Finland is also gearing up to increase its defense spending, a move that comes in response to pressure from the U.S. administration.
So we're here to continue the work that President Trump started, which is a commitment to 5% defense spending across this alliance, which we think will happen.
Orpo asserted that Finland aims to raise military spending to 5% of GDP by 2032. He also confirmed the government's April decision to reach a 3% of GDP defense spending by 2029. For TVP World, I'm Sonia Gatabishchan.
According to senior lawmakers from German Chancellor Friedrich Merz's party, the country may need to institute compulsory military service to replenish the shrinking numbers in the armed forces. The statement comes as the German government prepares legislation to revitalize the German army.
According to Thomas Erndl from the Christian Democrats, if the personnel needs for the army cannot be met through voluntary service, the country will have to add compulsory elements. He also highlighted a specific provision in the coalition agreement between the Christian Democrats and the Social Democratic Party. The document states service in the revived military will initially be voluntary. So far, the draft legislation is expected to include a limited registration process aimed at identifying potential voluntary recruits. The move is aimed at encouraging people to sign short-term contracts with the German military. Meanwhile, the German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius has ruled out return to mandatory military service.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte is to call for a 400% increase in air and missile defence spending from the alliance's member states. Reports are coming out that Rutte will call for this significant expansion of NATO defence efforts during his London address on Monday, detailing the need for member states to allocate more financial backing to air and missile defence specifically. During his visit, the Secretary-General will meet the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and the Secretary of State for Defence, John Healey. This development comes as the United States is pushing for the remaining alliance members to increase their defence spending to 5% of their respective GDP. Currently, Poland spends 4.7% of its GDP for defence, the highest in the alliance. I think that Poland's new president will realise how big of a threat the Russian Federation really is. This is what Ukrainian MP Maria Ionova told TVP World when asked about Polish President-elect Karol Nawrocki's recent statement in which he said that he is against Ukraine's EU and NATO accession at this moment. She also stressed that Russia is our common enemy and we need to focus on taking joint action to protect the European continent.
I think that a new president also will realize how big threat is Russia Federation. So even about your questions, I will give these questions to history, and I think that some of the elements that was during the electoral campaign, because I think that we have already apologized as Ukrainians on historical some events. So I think that it's not in favor of our friendship and partnership, to raise such sensitive historical questions. So I think that now the main enemy for all of us is Russia and their aggressions. And in this regard, we have to think about future and about our joint actions, how to protect European continent from this aggressor.
Elon Musk, father of tech billionaire Elon Musk, says that his son made a mistake engaging in a spat with the US president following his abrupt departure from Trump's administration. Musk Sr. attributed Elon's outburst to post-traumatic stress disorder from his time as the head of Doge, adding that he expects Trump to emerge victorious from the row.
According to Elon Musk, both President Trump and his son are suffering from PTSD caused by 5 stressful months in the White House, and that is what is causing them to lash out at each other. The row erupted after Elon criticized Trump's Big Beautiful Bill as a spending spree, calling it an abomination. The exchange intensified when Trump suggested cutting the government contracts with Musk's various companies as a way to reduce spending. The move angered Musk, who then accused Trump of being implicated as an accomplice of convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. Despite promising to release the Epstein case files once elected, Trump has so far failed to do so.
Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić has acclaimed his party's victory in local elections in Kosjerić. Vučić's Serbian Progressive Party won 49.2% of the vote and 14 mandates, a slim victory over the United for Kosjerić party, who won 48.5% of the vote, securing 13 mandates.
I have copies of all 29 ballot records from Kosjerić. On each of these records there are the signatures of our political opponents, who counted the votes and confirmed the number of votes with their signatures. With their signatures on these records, the Serbian Progressive Party list narrowly won in Kosjerić. I am especially proud of the result we have in Zaječar. I am proud because in the previous elections we had 42% of the votes on a 51% turnout. Today we received almost 48% of the votes.
Dramatic video footage shows the moment an Australian television reporter was hit by a rubber bullet while filming live at the Los Angeles protests in the US on Sunday. The 9 News Channel reporter Lauren Tomasi had paused after updating viewers on conditions at the demonstrations. An armed police officer dressed in full riot gear, who was stationed at a cordon behind Tomasi, then shot her with a rubber bullet. The non-lethal round hit the reporter in her left leg. Immigration authorities and demonstrators have clashed for the past 3 days after dozens were detained by federal immigration agents. Unrest in LA intensified over the weekend, with demonstrators blocking crucial roadways and setting cars on fire. The protests escalated after President Donald Trump announced that he would send in the National Guard to ensure the security of the city. British media report separately that a UK photographer has undergone emergency surgery after he was hit by rubber bullets during the protests. Israel has intercepted a ship carrying humanitarian aid to Gaza, which was accompanied by high-profile activists, including Swedish climate campaigner Greta Thunberg. The ship, known as the Madeleine, was stopped by Israeli forces approximately 100 kilometers from the Gaza Strip. Surveillance footage from the scene shows crew members seated with their hands raised while Israeli forces boarded the vessel. Activists, including Swedish climate campaigner Greta Thunberg, were on board. Despite carrying aid, the mission was met with criticism from Israel, who branded the operation as a publicity stunt aimed at gaining popularity. The activists on board, including Thunberg, have labelled the interception as a violation of international law, given the ship was in international waters. And that brings us to the end of this bulletin, but stay tuned, lots more coming up. Goodbye.